Hello, welcome to Iron War Horses, whichever version of my platform you're on, whether it's YouTube or TikTok, Reddit, etc. Welcome. So I made this is a short video that it seeks to basically introduce to people and explain why armored trains are still a thing, even in 2024 in Ukraine. So let's just get on with it. Uh, well, first of all, I love armored trains. They're a fascinating historical subject, and they just look incredibly cool. So I hope this short will help clear up some very common misconceptions and just often plain ignorance about armored trains in general, and the ones in the Russian-Ukraine conflict specifically. So, most people see a train with guns and some makeshift-looking protection in a modern war and laugh. Most others also say Russia bad because they are NATO trolls who would say that no matter what it was, but it has to be bad because it's Russian, right? But the simple fact is the use of armed and armored trains in various conflicts has been a non-stop thing since the American Civil War. The very first Railroad War. Except for particularly elaborate examples from World War I and World War II, for the most part, armored trains are very simple to make and can be assembled on the cheap using whatever is at hand at your local home rail depot. So, to make this simpler, I'm going to break this up into several key categories. 1. Construction and protection. The armor of most such trains, even today, is usually intended to stop bullets and shrapnel, and not, as many seem to think, tank rounds, ATGMs, RPGs, or anything that's designed to kill tanks, basically, or even, armored vehicles. It is simple, usually, but not all. It is simply, usually, but not always improvised, using locally available metal sheets, sandbags, rail sleepers, actual rails, and even concrete. A common method used throughout history is to install a double back wall on the train car and fill the gap between the walls with anything from rocks, sand, or concrete, as long as it is sufficient to stop standard rifle caliber armor piercing rounds and shrapnel. 2. Civilian armored trains. A very common misconception is that the only kind of armored trains that exist are the ones you see in wartime with guns on them. This couldn't be further from the truth. Even outside of war, commercial trains are often threatened by everything from casual vandalism, theft, bandit attacks, and other things that usually don't require heavy armor or armaments to deal with. There are plenty of examples of armor or at least protection applied to commercial trains, like the so-called ghetto bars in these photos, on American commercial trains going back to at least the 80s. And these 2022 photos show a much more elaborate, armored Ukrainian passenger train complete with a pilot wagon to carry rail supplies and potentially detonate mines. So it's not just military trains with guns. Like, what are their passenger trains supposed to do during wartime? Not protect themselves? 3. Military armored trains. Armed security and military trains, such as the type Russia uses right now in Ukraine, have always been used mainly to patrol and protect endangered areas of the railroad and rail workers from attack by bandits, saboteurs, thieves, and just opportunistic pricks. And anybody who lives in parts in cities where theft of railroad property is common, for example, in Los Angeles.
While you might be blaming that holiday gift that never arrived on the supply chain that we've been telling you about for months now, there may be another explanation. Wait till you see this. LAPD officers are finding that thousands of packages are being found near the train tracks in downtown Los Angeles. Wait till you see this video. Christine Lazar has more on what looks to be a modern-day Great Train robbery.
It's like a scene out of a disaster movie. Thousands of boxes littering the Union Pacific train tracks in downtown LA. But unlike in Hollywood, these aren't props. They're packages belonging to people from all over the country, from retailers like Amazon and REI. Thieves have been raiding the cargo containers on the trains that stop here to unload for months, leaving behind shredded boxes and things they don't want, like these home COVID tests. Sources tell me the locks Union Pacific uses are easy to cut, and LAPD says it won't respond to reports of a train robbery unless Union Pacific asks them for help.
They should appreciate why this is a thing. These armored trains, proper military and security trains, usually operate as mobile garrisons capable of moving large distances and being created relatively cheaply with local resources. The primary foe is lightly armed thieves, bandits, and partisans seeking to attack, plunder, or otherwise endanger railway property and traffic. This not need even be in wartime, as examples of the civilian trains show. Also, many countries have large areas of very isolated track where it is easy to ambush isolated trains and repair crews for whatever the reason, whether it be banditry or active sabotage during wartime. Think of it like having beat cops patrol the street. People are a lot less likely to commit crimes with armed police or guards patrolling the area, and it's no different with armored trains. So number 4 point, armaments. For the most part, light and rapid-fire armaments are sufficient for dealing with these types of foes. Thus, rifles, machine guns, and light autocannons, such as the Zu-23-2 on the Russian armored trains in Ukraine, are sufficient. And also, as an additional benefit, the Zu-23-2 is also good against drones, because it's a light anti-aircraft gun with a high elevation, fast traverse speeds, even when hand-operated, and rapid fire. It's pretty much perfect for use against small drones. Number 5, high value or dangerous cargo. In some cases, as a precaution, even when not otherwise endangered, trains carrying high value or simply dangerous for whatever reason, be it environmental or the fact that maybe the cargo itself is dangerous because maybe it's prisoners, for example. Military transport, for example, military transport trains, for example, will have armed guards that operate out of a special armored van or even multiple armored cars. Perfect example in this beautiful clip of an Indian Army special transport train that I got off Reddit, which I will have the username of the guy I got it from in the description. Note that the white van at the rear with large open fighting platforms, probably for placing a machine gun or other heavy weapon stored inside until needed, or simply to give the guards more room to operate. And in other cases, such trains will have additional escorts like rail recon cars scouting ahead, or even a full armored train playing chaperone. An example of this was in French Indochina, aka Vietnam, during the Indochina War, which is the one that the French lost to the Vietnamese. Then they screamed, come to save us from the evil commies, and then the United States bombed the country for like 14 years. Yeah, that war. Anyways, the Vietnamese would attack the railroads because they were used almost entirely by the colonizers and not them. So yeah. Anyways, the French would group together regular civilian passenger trains and cargo trains in convoys of 3 or 4 trains called rafale, which is a French word for meaning wind, essentially. And they would have a heavily armed train sent ahead of the whole lot, and it would stop at night. It wouldn't move at night, and it would stop in like heavily fortified areas specifically designed as rest spots for the train. So yeah, there's plenty of varieties and examples of trains that can be considered, if not armored, then at least armed. So anyways, I hope, this has taught you a few things about why armored or armed trains exist, what they are used for, and why they are not going to disappear anytime soon. Because they're not. They are very useful. They are usually pretty simple to put and cheap to put together, and they work. So yeah.